Welcome to the Liverpool FC Journal. I'm Owen W. James. This is your news update, guys. Look, there were positives, there were negatives from the 2-1 victory over Wolverhampton Wanderers yesterday at Anfield. Obviously, back up to fourth place. That is a huge positive for the club. 7 undefeated, huge positive for the club. I heard someone say the other day, it was written somewhere, that Liverpool are on the worst, best run of form of the season, which may appear slightly, weird to say, but you can't help but feel that even though the Vic club is currently winning games or not losing games, shall we say, the performances have not been absolutely fantastic. Yes, a win is a win, and the only wins this season have kind of come in that kind of, they won but kind of way, isn't it? It's not been outstanding. I suppose the only result you could put down as being an outstanding performance was the one against Real Madrid in the Champions League. But certainly, if you look back across the last few performances, and yesterday, obviously, against the worst team statistically in the league at this point in history of the Premier League, a scraped 2-1. Again against 9 men last week, hanging on against Spurs. Brighton, had they brought their shooting boots, could have quite easily been a very, very different game. Leeds United 3-3. Obviously throwing away yet another lead. I thought Sunderland unlucky not to win against Liverpool at Anfield. That's obviously the Chiesa block in the last minute of the Isidore chance. And then you go back to before that, obviously a 3-0 defeat to Forest, a 4-1 against PSV, some humbling. So even the victories, which have come in probably the easiest run of fixtures for the club. West Ham away, easy game. Newly promoted Sunderland, who are doing well this season, don't get me wrong. Newly promoted Leeds, who are struggling against relegation. Brighton, a decent side, but certainly not a good side. Spurs, who are going through their own run of difficulties at the moment, and Wolves, who are statistically the worst team. So let's not get things out of perspective. The slot lovers out there will tell you that this is the change, that the team is all things are rosy in the garden, but things are certainly not rosy in the garden at all. I've got to say, yesterday when the team was announced, I was stunned to see that man in the lineup. Certainly what I'd read and what I'd kind of tried to interpreted from what Arne Slot had said appeared to indicate that Federico Chiesa wouldn't play. That he'd be used as a sub. That seems to be what he was hinting at. But, realistically, on paper, that was the strongest 11, given all the injury problems that the club currently have and all the players currently missing, that Liverpool could have selected. You're looking at 2 goalkeepers on the bench, Mamardashvili and Woodman, Bradley, Gakpo, Robertson, Nioni, Ramsey, and Gamoa and Lucky. Obviously, some young players on that bench, Nioni, Ramsey, Lucky. Bradley still would count as a young player, I suppose. But look, I thought yesterday's performance was it's not poor, it wasn't good. It was average at best. First half was better than the second half. First half was all right. They played some nice stuff in the first half. Played okay in the first half. I thought in the first half that Kerkez was fantastic. I thought McAllister did well first half. I thought Curtis Jones in the first half was excellent. Frimpong first half, excellent. I thought across the whole game, Florian Wirtz was fantastic. We'll talk more about him. Ekitike, excellent. Again, Chiesa solid enough, but I think the criticism that he's had from some so-called fans today, calling him, saying, "Oh well, this is why Slot doesn't play him," after yesterday's game, I think are kind of missing the case that that Chiesa is not fully match fit. He is not, at the position yet where he's ready to start, where he's ready to play full games. And that shows why he was substituted when he was. Give him a run of games starting, and I think you'll see a very different Federico Chiesa to the one you saw yesterday. I think as well, there's a lot of fans out there that need to get a bit of perspective on this. We beat Wolves. We didn't beat Arsenal. We didn't beat Manchester City. We didn't beat Aston Villa. We didn't beat Chelsea. We beat Wolves. Statistically, the worst team in the league, in the history of the Premier League at this stage of the season. Yet, at times, second half, Liverpool were hanging on in that game to get the 3 points. Hanging on to get a point at one point, I think. Had Wolves had anything about them, they could have got an equaliser, I think, second half. The football, the second half especially, was absolutely diabolical. And I've got to raise a question. What happens around the 50, 55, 60-minute mark to this team? Where's the stamina? Where's the fitness? Where's the desire to go for 90 minutes? Certainly under Jurgen Klopp, you would never have seen a Liverpool team just lack desire, lack stamina, lack effort in that last half an hour, 35, 40 minutes of a game. It just wouldn't happen. And you've got to question what's going on the training ground for that to happen. What is Slot doing to these players to not have them in a position to run hard and go at it hard for 90 minutes? which we would have certainly seen under Jurgen. And, the fact that this team, I think, is not in a position yet to play, is playing football that is boring, that is predictable, that is dire, that is easy to play against. Slot ball is just some of the worst football I've seen in a long, long time. And, fans that go out there and they'll tell you that, like I said, that we're 7 unbeaten, everything's okay, genuinely are not living in the real world. This club are heading for a trophyless season under this manager. And certainly reports appear to indicate that Slot will be gone at the end of the season unless he wins the Champions League. That appears to be what is being said in a number of reliable sources, that Michael Edwards, that Richard Hughes and John W. Henry are certainly not happy with how this season has progressed and is progressing. After spending £500 million, they were expecting, I think, an awful lot better than this turgid football that they are watching on a weekly basis, and certainly probably will not be liking the criticism they're getting from a large percentage of the fan base for it, having obviously invested all that money in this squad. As I said to you, I think anyone who tells you that all is rosy in this garden and that Slot is the right man, it certainly is living in cloud fucking cuckoo land at this point in time. One positive from yesterday, of course, was Florian Wirtz. Now, look, yes, you've got to obviously take into account it was Wolves. It wasn't Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester City, Manchester United, or whoever. It was Wolves. Florian Wirtz was excellent yesterday. Absolutely excellent. Ran the game, found pockets of space, lovely passes around the corner, took on and beat his man, got his goal, was fantastic, was absolutely superb. And the way that he linked up with Hugo Ekitike for the goal just shows, number one, the class that Wirtz clearly has and can bring to the party. But not only that, the part that Hugo Ekitike is playing in this squad. Ekitike is different class. He is a fantastic forward. I think the one frustration with Ekitike is that he seems to cramp up around the 75 minute mark, that he can't do 90 minutes. I think that's the thing that's got to be looked at in terms of his fitness and moving him forward. But I thought Ekitike was brilliant. The pass through to Wirtz was fantastic. The shot he had that hit the post as well. He is the best forward of the club. And look, I've said it all along. It's an unpopular opinion. I think once he was signed, there was literally no need to sign Alexander Isak. Absolutely no need to sign Alexander Isak. I think Ekitike is head and shoulders better than Alexander Isak. He really is. And for me, you've got to find a way to make sure that this man is always in the starting 11 with the class that he has and the way that he plays. Curtis Jones, like I said, also very good yesterday. I thought Frimpong played very well. Frimpong brought a beautiful width to the game as well that has not been there historically over these last few games, and certainly over this season. The way he took on his defender, got to the byline, put the balls in, and certainly for the first goal was very good to see. And that's something certainly that Frimpong can bring. I think for me, if we're going to persist with this system, someone like a Frimpong and obviously a Kirkes on the other side works a hell of a lot better than the other fullbacks we currently have at the club. Nothing against Conor Bradley. I think he's fantastic and he did really, really well yesterday when he came on. But Frimpong certainly for me sort of put a marker down in terms of that performance yesterday and how he played. He played very, very well indeed. I thought Van Dijk and Konate were average at best yesterday, but the situation is what it is. We haven't got a centre-back. And, according to reports, there's no plans in January to move for one. I think you've got to move for one. I think if Liverpool come through the January transfer window with no centre-back, it's criminal. Absolutely criminal from the club. And basically he's saying, number one, we're writing this season off. And number two, that we don't have any confidence in the manager because we're not prepared to invest any further in this squad. And I think like I said, there was a lot of truth. And I think there's a lot of rumours. And I think there's a lot of sort of basis to these rumours as well, that Slot will not be Liverpool manager next season. I would go as far as to say, I'm 99% certain he will not be Liverpool manager next season. That's as much as I'm prepared to say on that one. But I do think it will happen. He will be replaced because of the, number one, the way the season has gone, and number two, the calibre of football he is playing at, which I don't think is acceptable to the hierarchy within the club. Certainly something I would back, because I genuinely do not rate this guy at all. I think last year he was fortunate to win the league. I thought he used the one thing that he changed certainly was, I think, getting the players fitter in terms of keeping them fit for the season. Is one thing where I thought Klopp fell down, but he used Klopp's team, he used Klopp's tactics, he used the way Klopp played. The players played a lot from muscle memory from Klopp's time there. I think a lot of the latent fitness also came from the time that Klopp was there. There wasn't a drop-off in fitness, as there has been this season when Slot's had a pre-season with them. One of the things that's always levelled against Dutch managers is their inability to get their players fit and keep them at full 100% fighting match fitness for an entire season. That's something that's always been a case with Dutch managers. So look, guys, yes, a victory yesterday. Yes, up to 4th place. All great news, all positive, but obviously a lot of negative to take, which is, like I said, holding on against one of the worst teams in the league is just not acceptable for this Liverpool team. Like I said, this is not just this game. You go back to the Sunderland game, to the Spurs game, to the Brighton game. None of those have been convincing against teams that are not exactly top 4 caliber teams. Other news, obviously, around this man, Harvey Elliott. Now, according to reports, there is no break clause agreement within the loan deal that will allow Liverpool to cancel Harvey Elliott's loan deal. Now, Elliott has obviously played very few games at Aston Villa this season. So, you know, the obviously that £35 million clause was going to be sort of triggered once Elliott got to 10 appearances. That certainly doesn't seem to be the case, and I don't think will be the case. Now, if Villa want to end Elliott's loan agreement with Liverpool, they have to pay a fee to do so. However, it is thought that Aston Villa will negotiate some way of cancelling that fee and cancelling the loan agreement with Liverpool. Now, like I said, he's hardly featured. He's had 4 appearances, played only 6% of the minutes in the Premier League. He's had 1 appearance in the Europa League, playing 1% of the minutes. He's had 1 appearance, playing 74% of the minutes in the Carabao Cup, and obviously played for us in the Community Shield. Now, because of how it works out, he cannot move to another club on loan or be transferred to another club within the same calendar as the Premier League. So it's not like Liverpool can bring him back and send him out somewhere else. That just can't happen. He could be lent to the MLS, for example, which has a different calendar to us, Saudi Pro League, somewhere like that, which I don't think Harvey Elliott is going to agree to. Now, like I said, a lot of the talk is that he will be returned to the club in January. Now, the one thing I'm going to say about this is, if he is returned to the club, I don't think he plays a big part, because I don't think Slot rates him. You've only got to look at last season, how he was underused by Slot at times when he could have well been used. And to me, it's wrong. Elliott is a good quality player, a top quality player who has a part to play in this team. And I think not using him going forward, given the paucity of talent in this squad and the lack of depth in this squad in comparison to our rivals, Manchester City, Arsenal, and even to some extent Aston Villa, I think Harvey Elliott has a part to play, and Arne Slot needs to get over himself, get his head out of his ass, and start actually playing some of these players that he doesn't seem to have time for, that he's blocking their first team path, the Rio Ngamoas, the Federico Chiesas, Harvey Elliott if he returns, for example. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching the Liverpool FC Journal. If you've enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow. We're 4 away from 50. We want to get to 1,000 as soon as possible. The sooner we get there, the more we can do with the channel. Thank you for supporting. I'll catch you on the next one.